It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.
You're listening to It's Only Sport here on the platform. We're joined by Rahul Patil, our cricket correspondent, expert. Of course, he was over at the One Day World Cup for us last year, and we still are lucky enough to be able to use him whenever the Black Caps play. And Rahul, I'd like to say the Black Caps play, but when you look at the scorecard, if you were to be a layman, and I guess compared to you, I certainly am a layman, I'd look at this and think that the Black Caps barely, whipped up a sweat. Please explain this performance.
Very, very difficult to explain this performance, Lachlan, because I guess when you look at the scorecard, one team scoring 602 odd for about 5, batted for the good part of almost 2 days, and then the Black Caps come out and score 88 in their first innings and 360 in their second. Now, if it was the other way around, wherein they had got 360 in their first innings and 88 in your second, you could explain that to some extent, because you're still kind of saying, okay, fine, they got 600, it was still a good pitch to bat on, we made 360, and then in the last, once we were following on, we were 88 all out. But just when you're trying to explain an innings of 88, there's very little that you can about it, because some of the shot making in that innings, and the reluctance of the batters to actually put their head down and just dig deep and defend and see through was just not there. And again, I come back to the same thing that we keep saying at the end of every test match. Or we'll take the learnings and we'll take the positives and we'll do this and we'll do that. There's no positives that come out of an innings of 88. Or a loss like this one, which was colossal in its nature. There's no positives, there's no learnings. The earlier you forget about a game like this and move on, the better it is for you, because there's nothing to learn from here.
Yeah, I've got some stats here that are quite telling. The total of 88 was New Zealand's lowest against Sri Lanka. 5 recognised batters had been dismissed for single figures. Ajaz Patel lingered longest at the crease. 64 minutes he was there in the end. The last wicket stand between Mitchell Santner and Will O'Rourke was the highest of the innings, 20 runs. I mean, we talked a lot about our batsmen in particular just being so out of form. And in that first test, I mean, when you're playing in these conditions, of course, we're not totally used to them, which, I think we can, in many ways, sort of overcome that with just a little bit of training or practice or something, surely. But, we're always going to struggle in their backyard when we're going away to the subcontinent. But at the same time, in that first test, Rahul, there were some positives. I remember watching Tom Latham thinking, here we go, this guy looks like he's getting back into some form, and yet it all just comes crumbling down at the second test. Is it a case purely of, if we can strip it back a bit, blaming the batters more so than the bowlers?
It's a tricky one, and I say that because you're right. We actually played better in the first test than we did in the second. Now, normally when you see touring sides, when they go on overseas tours, they almost take the first test match to get used to the conditions, and then you see a spike in their performances in the second or third test, if they've got 3 tests, that is. But to see, we've done exactly the reverse. We played our best cricket in the first test, and then in the second one we've really kind of got demolished by the opposition. Yes, we're not used to those conditions, but even then I think some of the batters really need to have a good hard look at some of the techniques that are being employed here. We are wanting to camp on our back foot. And when you're trying to do that on a turning track, that is fraught with danger. And the key to playing good spin bowling is to be deliberate with your foot movements. Either you smother the ball before it turns, which means you get to the pitch of the ball, or you get a good stride, play forward with soft hands, and you only go back on length when you can trust the bounce of the wicket. So, but some of the stuff that I've been seeing, there was one particular dismissal of Glenn Phillips, and I don't want to sound as if I'm coming down hard on him, but he was caught in no man's land, and then standing from his crease, he tried to bludgeon a ball through the offside when it was turning, only to get caught at slip. I mean, that shot for me summed it up, wherein, you've got no clue whether to go forward or backward, and all you're trying to do is hit your way out and you're never going to be successful doing that. So yeah, it's a hard one, and I think a lot of questions need to be asked. But if someone says, "Well, what are the answers?" There are no quick fixes for this. It's just one of those things that unless you get better at playing spin, you're never going to be successful in those conditions. And don't forget, the bowlers also have question marks because they have let the opposition get 602 on a wicket where their batters have been dismissed for 88 and 360. So, yeah, some questions around there as well.
Rahul Patil joining us here on the platform. In terms of team changes, Rahul, will there be any? The Black Caps aren't a team that often chop and change their side. I can't imagine ahead of this India Test series there's going to be too many changes at all.
I'd hope so. I was hoping there would be changes for the second test when we lost the first test, and I'd come up with at least 3 of them. But come the second test, we saw that they didn't change anything. So you're right, yeah. Should there be changes? Yes, there should be. Will there be changes? Probably not. I'd like to see what happens to that 15, because now that they'll pick the side to go to India, there are 4 players there in that 15 who haven't played at all. So how can you drop any of those 4 players when they haven't played at all? So I'm assuming those 4 players will be definite lock-ins for the India tour, which means if there's any changes that are to be made to the 15, they will have to be from the 11 that played. And the reluctance of the Black Caps to drop anyone from the playing 11 is widely known. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the selectors and the team management do as far as selecting the 15. But yeah, I still maintain Santner's, redeemed himself with the bat in this
It's
test
Only
match,
Sport
but
with
his
Martin
primary
Devlin
focus
on the
should be picking up
platform.
wickets.
Brought to you by One New
They've got
Zealand.
to test
Let's
him
get
on the
connected.
fact, on his ability to pick up wickets rather than his ability with the bat.